I'll just tell you, this lesson this morning is one that it's been very, how's the way to say it? It's been very soul searching for me, for my own life, for the way I deal with people, for the way I react to people, and even after having given the lesson, at least at one place so far, but I think this is the second time, it still is convicting because I've not conquered this thing we're going to talk about today in the way that I believe God would want me to. And so I'm going to study with you today about David. I've got a series of lessons that I've started about the heart of David. You know, David was known, and it's said throughout the scriptures that he was a man after God's own heart, that he was one that God picked out specifically because of the way he thought about people and felt about people, and especially the way he believed in God, his faith in God, the way that he trusted God. It was said that he was a man after his own heart. And so I've been studying about the heart of David, looking into his life. Most of it is found in 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, dealing with David's life here and the things that he went through. He went through some extraordinary trials. Some things that I don't think any of us have been through. And we tend to look at our lives and see some difficulties, and all of us go through difficulties. We do, all of us. There are times in life that it is difficult to see the path in front of us. There's times in life where it seems like we're not sure where to turn. And David had those things for sure in his life. He went through some things, y'all. Today, specifically, I want to talk about David and his relationship with Saul. Now, Saul was the first king of Israel. You might recall, as we study the Old Testament, the children of Israel were slaves in Egypt. Moses was sent by God to release them from Pharaoh's control and release them from slavery in Egypt. Through the series of plagues, God sent down upon the children of Egypt. They were released. They get out into the wilderness. My mind will work this morning. Into the wilderness. They're led through the Red Sea. They see all these wonderful miracles God continues to do. Every day they wake up, they have bread out there just on the ground to just go gather for the day. They got tired of the bread. It tasted like honey. They got tired of the bread. They start complaining about the bread. God starts sending them quail in the evening. So they've got meat in the evening and bread in the morning. They don't have to hunt for it. They don't have to work for it. It's just out there for them, ready to eat. So they go out and they gather. And eventually, they get to the promised land. They reject. They send out 12 spies. 10 of the 12 spies say, we can never conquer this land. 2 of the 12 spies said, we got to go do it now. And the people listened to the 10, and so they spent the next 40 years wandering the wilderness. Eventually, Joshua leads the people into the promised land. They take over their territories. It's divided into the 12 tribes. And for many years, for decades, they're led by what are called the judges, and that's it, recorded for us in the book of Judges. The last of those judges was Samuel. Samuel's sons were evil, and the people didn't want them ruling over them. They didn't want Samuel's sons to be rulers over them or to lead them in any way because they were evil. And so they demanded a king. And we find that Saul was the one that God picked out. The Bible says about Saul that he was more handsome than any of the other people of Israel. He was the most handsome man that there was in all of Israel. He was head and shoulders taller than everyone else in Israel. There was no one taller than him, no one stronger than him, no one more handsome. And so he was picked as king. Saul went and for many years was serving God and serving Israel as king in the right way. God sent him a message through Samuel to go and destroy the Amalekites. Saul was told utterly destroy them, save nothing. completely destroy them. It was because of something that the Amalekites had done while the children of Israel passed by them in the wilderness. They waited for all the warriors to pass by, and then they attacked from the back where all the women and children and sick people were. And because of that attack, God executed judgment upon them so that they would be utterly destroyed. Saul went in and destroyed most of the Amalekites. He destroyed their weaklings. He destroyed the things that weren't good, but he kept the jewels. He kept the gold. He kept the king alive. He kept the strong people that would be good servants. And because of this, the kingdom was going to be taken away from him. In the first couple, this is actually the third of the series of lessons. This is the one I really wanted to focus on today. We find that David was picked next out of the house of Jesse to be the next king of Israel. He was anointed by Samuel. And not long after that, Saul, because God's spirit had left him, he started having this distressing spirit. The Bible says from God, a distressing spirit would come upon him, and he was distressed. And his people said, well, let's find you a good musician that could come and play the harp, so when you're distressed, it can calm you. And so they found David, because David was an incredible harpist. He could play the harp, he could sing. We know he was an incredible musician because the largest book in all the Bible is the book of Psalms. And that's all songs. A lot of them that David wrote. Not all of them were written by David, but a lot of them were written by David. Incredible musician. So they bring David in, and he plays the harp for Saul, and it calms Saul down. And that was good. And not long after that, not long after David was employed in this way, we find that Saul and the army of Israel are out in the valley. I've forgotten the valley's name, and I don't have it written down here, but they're opposite the Philistines. The Philistines are this mighty army that are against them, and the Philistines have this giant named Goliath. We all know the story here. Goliath would go out every morning and every evening, and he would taunt. He would taunt the Israelites. He said, I defy someone to come and fight me. Fight me man on man, and if you win, then we'll be your servants, and if I win, then you'll be our servants, and we can just save all the bloodshed. And all the Israelites were scared to death. It would make sense that Saul should go because he was the biggest one. He was the king, but Saul wouldn't go. And David just happened to come in with some food for his older brothers and heard the taunt, and he was like, he's taunting not just Israel, he's taunting God. And so David goes out, slays the giant, and this is where we pick up our story. I'll go ahead and read 1 Samuel 17, verses 46 and 47. David says, this day the Lord will deliver, he's speaking to Goliath. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. I've got a whole lesson about David's attitude here. His attitude was, I'm not going to win this. The Israelites are not going to win this. God is going to win this. God is going to give you into our hands. God is going to just deliver you today to us. And that was the way he thought about it. And so he did. He slew the giant Goliath. He killed him. This big giant man. And David was probably, most scholars agree, he was probably in the range 15 to 16 years old when he slew Goliath. You know, about the age of some of these young men here. And slew a 9-foot giant, 9+ foot giant. And so what we find is, as they're coming back into the city where the king lived, the women were singing songs, as people will do. They made up a song that said, Saul has slain his thousands, you know, giving tribute to Saul, giving him glory and majesty as the king who had delivered Israel over and over again through many battles. But in 1 Samuel 18, verse 7, the second part of that song says, David has slain his 10,000s. So Saul's slain thousands, but David? Oh, David's 10 times better. David's slain 10,000s. So we find that the next thing that happens, 3 verses later, 1 Samuel 18, verse 10, Saul has the distressing spirit. David's playing the harp for him. Saul sees David over there playing the harp, grabs a spear and throws it at him to kill him. He tries to spear him, and David escapes, and he gets away. And Jonathan, David's best friend in all the world, Jonathan goes to his dad, Saul, and he says, Dad, listen, David hasn't done anything to hurt you. He's never said anything bad about you. He's never done anything against you. All he's ever tried to do was serve you and serve God. Let him come back. Let him come back safely. And so Saul agrees. He says, okay, tell David everything's fine. He can come back, serve me as he's done, and everything will be fine. So that's what he tells Jonathan. But in 1 Samuel 18, verse 25, we see that Saul sets forth a conspiracy against David. He tells his servants, go to David and tell him, I want him to marry my daughter. This was a common thing, and even the men at the camp where Goliath was slain, the men told David, if you beat this giant, you're going to get one of the king's daughters, you're going to have riches, you're going to have wealth, you're going to be well known. And so Saul says to his servants, tell David he can marry my daughter. David says, I'm not worthy to marry the king's daughter. I'm not worthy to go and be a part of his family. Like, that, far be it from me. And they said, no, he really wants you to marry his daughter. He says, well, maybe I could do that. They said, but he has a special request. As a bridal gift, he wants you to get 100 foreskins of Philistines as a bridal gift. He wants you to go kill 100 Philistines. And so David says, okay. And so he goes out and kills not just 100, he kills 200 Philistines. Brings their foreskins into Saul, says, here you go. And the whole point was, Saul was trying to get David killed. That was the whole point. He was hoping that these 100 Philistines would kill David and he'd be out of the way. He didn't really want him to marry his daughter. He really wanted him dead. But David conquered. 200 Philistines are dead now. David brings them in. And Saul has to do the thing. He has to give him his daughter. So he gives him his daughter Michal to marry as his wife. And in 1 Samuel 19, verse 9, we see again another scene where Saul has this distressing spirit. And David is there playing the harp again for him. Now he's got a wife, Michal. He's playing for the king again. And Saul sees him again and grabs a spear and tries to spear him again. David escaped. Went to his wife. Says, your dad tried to kill me again. He says, I got to go. And so she let him down the city wall, out the window on a rope, and he escaped. And she prepared an image, is what the Bible says, an image of a man. So like she put pillows under the covers in the bed, pretending David was there. And Saul sent people in to try to kill David while he was asleep. He really wants this man dead. He's trying over and over and over to kill him. And I get the picture, if you've ever seen the Lord of the Rings movies, I get the picture of the Nazgul when they're going in to kill the hobbits. They're at the very beginning of the movie. They think they're in the beds and they grab their swords and they start stabbing the bed, and it's just feathers because it's all pillows and bedding. It really made Saul mad. He went to his daughter and said, what have you done? How have you treated me this way, to pretend like David was there in the bed, but he wasn't there in bed? Not only that, you let him out of the city. How could you do this to me? She said, he's not done anything to you. He's not said a word against you. He's done nothing but serve you. He's done nothing to you. And so we find in the next few chapters, 1 Samuel 21, 22, and 23, for 3 chapters, David is on the run. And he's on the run for years. These 3 chapters, it spans about 10 years of David's life, where he is running from city to city, sometimes living in caves, sometimes living just out in the wilderness, just out in the open. Sometimes he's able to be in a city. Sometimes he has food. He has a group of men that have come to be with him. They're known as David's mighty men. And some of them have just incredible warriors. He has this group of about, I think it's 400 men. We get to it in a minute. I think he has 400 men with him. And then some of them are known as his mighty men on top of that are the real big warriors, the really tough, incredible warriors that he has with him. But we find that this whole time, for about 10 years, Saul is trying to kill him. He's searching for him. He's trying to catch up with him. And we find that in 1 Samuel 24, starting in verse 1, Saul finds where David is. And I want to read a lot of this, starting in 1 Samuel 24. Verses 1 through 4 say, "Now it happened, when Saul had returned from following the Philistines, that it was told to him, saying, 'Take note, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi.' Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and went to seek David and his men on the rocks of the wild goats. And so we came to the sheepfolds by the road, where there was a cave, and Saul went in to attend to his needs. David and his men were staying in the recesses of that cave. Then the men said to David, 'This is the day the Lord said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it seems good to you.'" So here's the scene. David has been running for years from this man. This is a man that is trying to kill him. This is not somebody that's talking bad about him. This is not somebody that is an enemy in the way we think of enemies today. This is not somebody that is working against him. This is somebody that wants him dead. And is trying over and over and over again to actively kill him. I've never had that in my life. I would venture to say none of us here have ever had somebody that was literally trying to kill us. I don't think any of us have experienced that. That's rare these days. But here's the part that convicts me. How do we react when it seems like somebody's an enemy? How do we react when it seems like somebody is against us? When maybe they're doing things that we don't like. A big trigger for me. I am trying to do better. And Emily can attest, and Braden can attest. Somebody does something in traffic that's really rude and terrible, it makes me mad. It makes me mad. Like it just, I just like, why did you do that? And I've reacted really badly in those situations. And I'm not saying this to my glory. I'm saying this because I'm trying to fix it. Most of the time, those people didn't do those things. They didn't say, "Oh, there's Robert. Watch this. I'm going to get him." They didn't see me in the car and be like, "I'm cutting him off right now." They for sure weren't trying to kill me. But I would get so mad. Just fired up. Scary. Not good. Not at all good. Watch what David's reaction is. His men, they see Saul come in. Saul comes into this cave where they are staying. They're just like living in this cave. All of a sudden, there's the king. He just came in to use the bathroom. He just came in to relieve himself. And they're like, "David, there he is. He's right here. God brought him to you. Kill him and let's go home." All these men were living away from home, going from city to city to city, cave to cave, wilderness to wilderness, all over the place for years. And here he is. He's indisposed. Do it. How would you react? His men would have killed him right there. And maybe some of us would have. Here's what David did. Verse 4, David arose and secretly cut off the corner of Saul's robe. He just got up, went over to him secretly, cut the corner of his robe off. What was David's reaction to that? He has this opportunity to kill Saul. His men are telling him to kill Saul. Instead, he just cuts the corner of his robe. And verse 5 says he felt guilty about it. Verse 5 says it happened afterward that David's heart troubled him because he had cut Saul's robe. Here's the thing that we have to know about David. David's faith was completely in God. David trusted in God. Even in the face of someone trying to kill him, even in the face of living in the wilderness, literally living in caves, literally going from city to city for years. This wasn't like a 2-month spat. This wasn't like, this was a big deal in his life as a young man. But his faith was in God. He knew that God was in control. He knew that God had him in his arms. And he believed that God's will was the most important thing. Whatever God willed, that was most important. More important than his desires, more important than his wishes, more important than what he feels. God's will was more important than those things. And God had put Saul in as king. God picked Saul and put him as king. The ruler of all Israel, of whom David was part of. And David believed that Saul wasn't his enemy. That's a hard truth. David didn't view Saul as the enemy. Let that sink in a second. He's trying to kill David over and over and over for years. You know how David viewed Saul? He viewed Saul as the Lord's anointed. God anointed you as king. I'm not going to do anything to disrupt that. Not only that, he wasn't going to let his men do anything to disrupt that. He refused to let his men kill him. He had given him the opportunity. God had given him the opportunity, and David said, no way. I'm going to summarize some more. I've got more verses written down that I wanted to read, but continuing in 1 Samuel 24, David says, I could never do this. I shouldn't have cut off his robe. I can't kill him for sure. And none of you are going to kill him. And so he goes out after Saul's done with his business and leaves the cave. David goes out of the cave and says, hey, Saul. This is summarized. Saul, look, my lord the king, here I am. And he says, David, is that you? He said, yeah. You were in the cave with me, and I was in the cave with you. And look, I've got a corner of your robe. I could have killed you, but I didn't. And Saul says, you're a better man than me. And he goes on his way. And David has some peace for a little bit. And not long after that, we find that they have this discussion all the way through 1 Samuel 24. In 1 Samuel 26, we find that David and his men are camped out again, another place, and Saul's people find him again. And Saul's people are camped over here, David's people are camped over here. And at night, David tells a couple of his men, come with me into the camp. And so they go into the camp, and the men say, look, again, here's Saul. And he's asleep, and you could kill him, and we could go home, and you could be the king. Verse 8, 1 Samuel 26, verse 8, Abishai encourages him to kill Saul. But again, verses 9 through 11, David refuses to kill him, refuses to harm him, or let his people harm him. He says he's not going to seek to kill Saul because he's not my enemy. He's the Lord's anointed. Instead, he takes Saul's helmet and his water jug. He takes the helmet and water jug from beside his bed, takes him back to his camp. And the next morning, as Saul's getting up, he says, "My lord the king," he says, "look, I have your water jug and your helmet. I could have killed you again, but I didn't because you're the Lord's anointed." And Saul says, "Okay, fine, I won't seek your life anymore." That was finally the end of Saul trying to kill him. He finally realized David's not trying to harm me, and he relented. He finally was done. And so what we see then is in 1 Samuel 31, the death of Saul and his sons. They're fighting again with the Philistines on Mount Gilboa. Many of the Israelites have been killed. Many of the Philistines have been killed. The Bible says that the Philistines followed hard after Saul and his sons specifically, and they killed Jonathan, his son, Abinadab, his son, Malchishua, his son, and then the battle became fierce against Saul, and archers hit him, and he was severely wounded by the archers. And so here's Saul. His sons are dead. He's been hit by archers, I'm guessing several times, based on the archers hit him. He says to his armor bearer in verse 4, this is 1 Samuel 31, "Draw your sword and thrust me through with it, lest these uncircumcised men come and thrust me through and abuse me." But his armor bearer would not, for he was greatly afraid. And therefore Saul took a sword, and fell on it. So he took a sword, put it against a rock, fell on the sword to kill himself. When the armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell on his sword too and died with him. And so Saul and his men all died there at Mount Gilboa. That's the end of 1 Samuel. In 2 Samuel 1, verse 1, we find, "Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had stayed 2 days in Ziklag. On the third day, behold, it happened that a man came from Saul's camp with his clothes torn and dust on his head. And so it was, when he came to David, he fell on the ground and prostrated himself. David said to him, 'Where have you come from?' And he said, 'I escaped to the camp of Israel.' David said to him, 'How did the matter go? Please tell me.' And he answered, 'The people fled from the battle. Many people have fallen dead. Saul and Jonathan, his son, are dead also.' And so David said to the young man, 'How do you know that Saul and Jonathan, his son, are dead?'" And here's the next part of this is, here's how I think this young man thought it was going to go. Have you ever been at school or you've been at work and there's somebody that sees an opportunity to get in good with the boss? They see an opportunity to get a leg up, to get in better with the teacher, get in better with the boss, and they go to the boss and they say, "Hey, you'll never guess what I did for you. I did something really special for you," and hoping to get some favor in return. That's what this man was trying to do. It says, "As it happened by chance, I happened by chance to be on Mount Gilboa, and there was Saul leaning on his spear, and indeed with chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And now when he looked behind him, he saw me and said, I answered and said, 'Here I am.' And he said to me, 'Who are you?' I answered, 'I'm an Amalekite.' He said, 'Please stand over me and kill me, for anguish has come upon me, but my life remains in me.' And so the young man's, David said, 'Where are you from?' He says, I'm an Amalekite." He figures, here I saw Saul dead. I'm going to tell him that I did it. I killed him. I'm going to tell David that I killed him. So that way I can get some favor. I can maybe get some riches from this. Maybe get some good standing with the new king. You figure that's what David's going to do. What's David's reaction to this? David said in verse 14, "How is it that you were not afraid to put forth your hand to destroy the Lord's anointed?" It says, why were you not afraid to kill Saul? He was God's king. God anointed him king. Why would you do that? And so David called for him to be executed. They killed the young man right there. Boom. You're done. He says, your blood is on your own hand, for your own mouth has testified against you, saying, I have killed the Lord's anointed. He said, no. That was God's anointed person. And so here, I'm going to tie this back in for us as we wrap up our study. David viewed, who I think we can agree, I think most people would agree, David viewed someone who was his enemy as God's anointed, not as the enemy. David had viewed somebody who was trying to kill him as God's own, and that he couldn't take his life, and he wouldn't even seek for anybody else to take his life. He wanted him to live a natural life and live a long life, even though David knew he was going to be king next. Whenever Saul was done being king, David was going to be king. No more running from place to place, no more living in caves. You'd be in a palace. But David was not going to end Saul's life. David was not going to seek Saul's life. David wasn't going to let any of his men kill Saul. And when this young man came and said he did it, thinking he was going to get some favor, David killed him. The thing I keep coming back to, and the way we deal with brothers and sisters in the church, and the way we deal with people outside the church, are these two facts. Number one, the book of Genesis tells us God said, let us make man in our image. You were made in the image of God. I was made in the image of God. And the people around us were all made in the image of God. Maybe we shouldn't do things against them. Second, Jesus died for you. And Jesus died for me. And yes, Jesus died for that person that cut me off in traffic. That person that was talking bad about me. That person that... Here's the deal. When it comes down to it, it only matters how you respond. How I respond. Again, I don't have that fixed. I'm standing here today telling you that I'm still 50 years old, still trying to figure it out. How do we respond when somebody seems to be an enemy? David's heart was, this is God's person. How can I do anything against him? Do we have that same attitude? This is someone that was made in the image of God. This is someone that Jesus died for. How should we treat them? I'm going to leave you with that for this morning. We never close the service without offering the gospel invitation.